feed everything, okay? And how many of these haversian canals do you have in bone? Every single osteon has one, okay? So that's why they're saying it's the haversian system. It's the way that the system gets fed, okay? People don't really use that. They call it haversian canals, which has to do with the center canal.
The perforating ones are not.
Right, and what do we call it perforating? Perforating or Volkmann. Okay, so the ones, the length of the bone, you have to have it in and out for these blood vessels. And instead of having one at the very top and one at the very bottom, they have them periodically through the bone, called perforating. And this one might connect a different one, which connects to a different one, which connects to a different one. So the blood vessel doesn't only run from one end to the other. It can go down and over here, go all through the bone. Okay, so that it's feeding all parts of this osteon, not just one little tube. Does that make sense? Okay, you will need to know them as perforating and also Volkmann, haversian, and or central canal. Okay, and we talked about the lamellae a little bit when we talked about being circular. What is lamellae made out of? Well, in total, and collagen, so it's made out of extracellular matrix. The lamellae are just rings of extracellular matrix. Okay, and then they make little holes in them before they can put the canals, perforating canals, as well as the. Well, yeah, we're talking about that in just a minute. Bone formation, how we get that that central canal in the middle. But what are the lacunae?
Little holes for the osteocyte.
Little holes.
It's like
okay.
a lake.
Okay, yeah. Just think of it as a depression. Think of it as a hole in the bone that the osteocyte can sit in. Because do you have osteocytes here?
No.
Do you have osteocytes here? Or do you only have them here?
Well, it goes all the way through.
Well, is this osteocyte stop right here?
No.
No, it goes the length of the bone, right? So there are osteocytes all the way through here. Okay, think of it as a subway system. And each depot that you stop at, each subway station is a lacunae. And then you go back into the tunnel, which is between osteocytes, canaliculi. Okay, so you're on the New York subway, you come up to Main Grand Station, that's a lacunae. You have osteocytes in there. Then you get back in the next subway and it goes from that lacunae to the next one, 5th Street. That's a lacunae. That's where you get on and off the subway. Same thing all the way around New York. These do the same thing all the way around the osteocyte. Excuse me, around the osteon. Okay. So they have these tunnels and these holes so that the osteocytes can maintain, they can transfer nutrients and different things of that effect throughout the entire bone. Okay. How is spongy bone different? Well, actually, what are the 3 types of lamellae? We have this one that's inside the osteon. What do we call that?
Lamellae?
No, when something's in a circle, we call it concentric. Okay. Inside an osteon is the concentric ones. What happens if you put a whole bunch of circles together? Do all the sides meet? No. You have spaces here, right? What do we call those? Think of these as cells. What would we call it if these were cells? What would we call the space between cells? Say it again, louder.
Interstitial.
Interstitial lamella.
No.
Okay, so this is your interstitial. I think that's spelled right. I might have an extra T in there. Right, interstitial. Anyways, so in between the circles, or in between the osteons, we have interstitial. Okay? And then we're talking about one more that goes around the entire bone. Christopher Columbus sailed around the entire world. We say he did what to the world?
Discovered.
Not only discovered, but what's the movement around the circle? Circumferential. So he circumvented the earth, something like that, how do they say it? Anyways, go all the way around the circle, sailed the ocean blue, 1492. Okay, so this is called the circumferential. Okay, these two, interstitial and circumferential, are labeled in your book. They're not labeled in your study guide. You are responsible for them.
So where are those two?
Okay, if you
I'm
look,
confused.
if you look at this bottom picture on 387, you can see there's two layers of lamellae that go around all the way around the outside of that bone. You have that little blue layer. You have the blue layer on the outside, that light blue area on the outside. And then there's about two layers of extracellular matrix that go around the entire bone. That's called circumferential. This blue, what goes on the outside of bone? Periosteum. Okay, so the blue that you see in that picture is the periosteum.
And then those two little ones,
And then
those
those-
little ones are the circumferential.
Those two layers going around that are the circumferential. Page 180 of your book, does anyone have their book here? How many people have cracked their book this whole entire semester? Yeah. So here's your circumferential, and here's your interstitial.
Oh, I know.
They're labeled here. Go home and write on your notes, page 180, sorry, I didn't mean to do
No, you're fine.
Here, there. Write page 180, on the very top of that exact picture, it shows you what the circumferential and what the interstitial lamellae are. Okay, and it's also what I just told you. Inside each osteon, is in between them is the interstitial. Around the whole entire bone is your circumferential. And then inside each osteon is your,
What?
inside each osteon, what kind of lamellae do you have?
Interstitial. No.
No, inside,
Inside.
Concentric.
concentric. Concentric. Okay. So inside the osteon itself, it's the very top labeled on that picture inside your book, 387. Concentric lamellae, right above blood vessels and lymph vessels.
So that's a layer, right?
It's the layer of hard extracellular matrix that they put in rings. Okay, that's concentric. That makes up an osteon.
Is that the layer, the white layer that right here? Does it cause circumstance?
No, that white layer is the periosteum. This is the periosteum. This layer here and this layer here goes all the way around the bone. That's the circumferential. It's labeled really well in your book, so you can see that really well. So make sure you look at it in your book, page 180. Okay. You need to be able to label that picture, trabeculae on the spongy bone, your osteon on your compact bone, your perforating or Volkmann canals, your canaliculi, your osteon, your osteocytes, lacunae, then the three lamellae. Okay, so you need to be able to identify that picture. Spongy bone has a bunch of interstitial lamellae in it. It does not have an osteome, okay? It does have lacunae, it does have osteocytes, it does have candaliculi, but the lamellae that they lay down is what we call interstitial lamellae. Okay, so no spongy bone versus compact bone. And spongy bone is where you find red bone marrow and yellow bone marrow.
What are the three lamellae again? Concentric? Oh, okay. The interstitial, gotcha.
So interstitial, circumferential, concentric. Know where they're at. And we're going to talk about this one here a tad bit more, circumferential, in just a minute. When we talk about bone remodeling.
So quick question real fast. Interstitial, that is in between the osteon, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha.
It's also in spongy bone,
Okay.
where there is no osteons.
Okay.
So, but that's what they call, because there is no osteon, they really don't call it concentric, because it's not always concentric. Does that make sense?
So interstitial would be the area where the red and yellow bone marrow are? Or in the spongy bone?
Well, interstitial lamellae is what's going to make up the trabeculae.
Okay.
Trabeculae are the, what? What are trabeculae?
The little protruding.
They're the finger-like projections, the structure, will make the structure of spongy bone. Okay?
Oh.
We used to think of lamellae as another word for extracellular matrix.
It's the hole in the extracellular matrix. Yes, 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 I was thinking,
Lamellae
okay,
is
sorry
just
about that, I
another
was
word
thinking,
for-
yes. Lamellae are just rings of extracellular matrix.
And these are just three different varieties.
Yes, and there are 3 different varieties of rings. Exactly. Or actually, interstitial is not a ring, it's the fill-in between rings.
But it's still the same thing. It's
The
just
still lamellae, still extracellular matrix.
different shape.
Yeah, okay. They go off just for a moment, and they talk about cartilage, and they talk about synarthrosis and synovial joints. I'm going to skip that for right now, because we're going to talk about the joints at the end, about their anatomical function and their anatomical makeup and their functions. Okay, so both the anatomy and physiology of them. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But we do have 3 types of cartilage throughout our lives. When we're born, how much of our body is cartilage?
Most of it.
Practically all of it. Okay. When we get old, there's just a very small amount that is cartilage. Okay. And there are some places that we actually need cartilage in place of bone. Okay. Your nose, your ears, vertebrae, the padding in the vertebrae, pubic symphysis, your lungs need to have that expansion, the trachea, things to that effect. So there's certain areas that need to have cartilage your entire life. That page, the bottom picture on 389, where it tells where the hyaline cartilage is, where the fiber cartilage is, and where the elastic cartilage is something you need to know. They could ask you, what type of cartilage is found in the epiglottis? You'd say, elastic cartilage. Or it might say, where is elastic cartilage found? And you'd have to say, in the ear or in the epiglottis. Okay, so there's 2 different ways in which they can put that in as a test question.
Is there a better picture of that in the book?
We're just looking
Oh, no, it's just,
I'm not sure if it is or not. You know
we
that
don't have to
red?
label it. do we?
No, you don't need to label it. You just need to know where those are at. So those definitions, those bullet points on the right-hand side of there, if you just know the bullet points, you'd be in good shape. Not only do we have cartilage, but we have dense regular and dense irregular connective tissue. Okay. Where do we find dense regular connective tissue? Tendons and ligaments. Very good. And the dense irregular